Morning, everyone. Today, we don't have a security topic per se, but I wanted to discuss some tooling for making specifications. Because everyone loves typesetting. I'm just setting things up real quick. So, as folks may know, OCP has a template for making specs and contributions. It is a Google Doc, and I'm a big fan of Google Docs for like collaboration and early like sketching out. At some point in a spec's life cycle, it sometimes becomes useful to have it in GitHub for version control and the like. So yes, sorry, my thoughts are not very well organized. I don't have like a spiel I'm reading from. But those of you who are, well, many of us are active in the Trusted Computing group, and this group has put together some tooling to migrate their specs from Word to Markdown. This tooling can produce PDFs that look quite nice. And I have been busy patching that tooling to allow for custom templates. The way this tooling, let me go pull it up actually. Share this. I'll share the entire screen. So this is the pandoc repo from Trusted Computing Group. This runs in a Docker container, so it's quite portable. There's all the dependencies are all got for you. You can just go run it via Docker, and it takes in a Markdown file and spits out a PDF. It can also spit out HTML, and it can also spit out an actual Word doc, but that's for legacy reasons. I don't think we would actually require that. It supports diffing between Git commits. Yeah, it's pretty fancy. Renders all kinds of different diagrams. Handles UML, Mermaid, ASCII art, Draw.io extensions or diagrams. So here is a specification that we've been working on to prove this out. This is the OCP lock specification under Calyptra. And we have this document here. It uses the .ocp extension. This is nominally Markdown, but not exactly. It's got some LaTeX mixed in and some YAML front matter. So it's not pure Markdown, which is why it has a different extension here. But here is the front matter, so you can specify the title, version, and then some of these are OCP specific. Like the OCP specs, you can have base specifications, design specifications, product specifications, I think. And then in OCP, each spec can come from a different project. So this comes from the NVMe project, a list of authors, and a bibliography with its own YAML file. This is one of my favorite parts of this whole setup. You can declare a bibliography with a bunch of references, each with an ID, a title, authors, URL. Many URL or many titles. date accessed if you need it. And then within your spec, you can just reference it like this. And because I found when I'm trying to have a Word doc and keep references up to date, like they can easily get out of sync if you're manually trying to keep the numbers at the bottom of the page matching the footnotes or superscripts elsewhere in the document. So this just engineers away that problem. So you can just type this out and it will automatically render the numbers for you. So for the most part, this is pretty much, yeah, aside from these custom LaTeX macros, this is standard Markdown. Let's see, diagrams here. You can use draw.io, which is very nice. It is an open, portable, or rather self-contained format. So if you look at MPK generate, this is just a straight up SVG. This diagram, MPK generate, well, any of these really. So this is what it looks like rendered. If you open up the code, you can see, yeah, this is all straight up SVG, but this first line here includes content, some encoded content. So all this base64 encoded stuff, this is a more rich representation of the diagram, which draw.io tooling will then spit out here. So if you open this up in something which is just SVG aware, you get this. But if you open it in something that is draw.io aware, all of a sudden each of these rectangles has anchor points, and you can drag them, resize them, and anchor arrows to them. It's pretty nice. And you don't need to go hunt for the original of this. This is the source of truth for this diagram. So I'll show you what it looks like to render it. Let's see. So this is the tooling for actually churning out, like doing a markdown to PDF conversion where you provide the LaTeX template. We also have OCP Spec Tools repo, which provides that custom template. So under OCP Pen Resources, PDF, here is the LaTeX template that I've put together for OCP. It's basically was cribbed from the TCG version, but I ripped out all the custom TCG things. They needed a few more special things than we need. But it's not the most approachable format, but it works. My colleague and I are also looking at Typest, TYPST, as a possible replacement for LaTeX. It's new, built on Rust, fast compilation, much more approachable error messages. But for now, it's LaTeX. And then we provide a couple of shell scripts, Docker pull, which just pulls in the latest version of the conversion engine, and then Docker run, which runs that image with flags that will provide the actual templates for OCP. So all you do is you clone this back down to your local machine and run, pass your Docker run with your OCP file. Note that we're skipping a bunch of conversions. Each one of these images needs to be converted properly before it'll show up in a PDF properly, and we do cache them. So you don't need to redo that every time, because that can take a long time. Like for the amount of diagrams we have here, it could take like 1.5 minutes to render them all. All right, but we're done in 6 seconds. And here we go. A nice table of contents here. Here's our footnote, or our references. Just you can click this, goes down to your list here. our diagrams show up just nicely. Got tables. And one thing we do take advantage of here is plant UML. So we have a bunch of sequence diagrams where actually in the document itself, it's just a single line, just an include. This is plant UML syntax, but this brings in all the UML content from here. And the tooling just slurps that up and renders it to sequence diagrams. So we have used this tooling to contribute version 0.8.1 of this spec to OCP, and it went through. It has not, to my knowledge, been used in any other projects, and it has not been officially adopted by OCP leadership. But we have shared it with them, and they've, as far as I know, they've been taking a look. Haven't heard much back. The understanding is that they would ultimately be responsible for maintaining the content of these templates. If they would like the templates to look differently, they would need to come in and make some changes here. Let's see, I think that's...
I mean, does OCP have some kind of policy about what types of document formats must be used or anything? Or is it just, are groups free to do whatever they want?
So I know they accept Google Docs, and we have evidence that they submit, well, they also accept PDFs. I think the criteria is that it looks like an OCP contribution, that it matches the official templates. So I don't think it's like quite as rigid as maybe some of the TCG processes, where they require them in a certain file format. I know that we got some pushback on OCP lock 0.8 because we're not using any of this. We were making a best effort attempt to render something which looked kind of like an OCP spec, but not really. And so there was quite a bit of pushback to say, hey, this does not look like an OCP contribution. So then that's why I went in. I didn't want to have to port everything away from Markdown back to Google Docs for that. So so I'd looked into the TCG tooling and extended it for this.
Jeff, this is great. Is the goal that the template, the OCP template, would reside in like a common repository, and then any changes to that template would automatically change all documents?
Exactly. Yes. You see, this repo here is the OCP spec tools repo, which I asked the OCP folks to make for us. And here, this is just the Calyptra repo, where I have I've cloned OCP spec tools down here, so you just pull it down and then run the script, and this script will pull in all the OCP templates just live in here, the common repo.
Yeah, that's super nice.
We can also do more fancy things like have GitHub actions, which you can use to just configure your own repos, and it'll all just happen on GitHub side without you having to clone stuff and run scripts yet. That would not be a lot of work to do, but haven't found a need for it yet.
Yeah, and I love the change control this gives on documents and document updates and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we're always perpetually battling that kind of corruption. We want documents open for comments and things, but then people go in and make random changes, and it's
exactly, yeah,
it's always been a problem for us. Is there a way to convert existing documents over, or is it manual right now?
It would be manual. Actually, let's see. So this is a draft pull request where I took, now in this repo, hardware management OCP profiles, this is a bunch of, let's see, this is Rec Manager Open Usage Guide. Yeah, so here's a bunch of markdowns across this entire repo. These are not quite, now these use some inline HTML, obviously. So if you just take this as is, like it will render to PDF. It won't look the way you want, I think. So, so I as a proof of concept, I went in and I did, okay, what would it take to change that to the new format? So first off, one difference between what they're doing here is they have these CFG files. So like all the title and metadata stuff is in a separate file instead of like the YAML front matter. So deleted that, created a bibliography because you can do that now. And then, so here's a new, once it's been renamed and reformatted, so we now have the front matter. We use code blocks for all this stuff. One thing, yeah, so here's an existing code block, and I found that when converted to PDF, this would run off the edge of the page. There's not a lot of horizontal space here. So I reformatted it to use shallower indentation. Also, I went in and added a feature to the TCG tooling. I upstreamed it to let you specify what font size you want in case you want your code block to show up smaller so it all fits. So you can do regular, smaller, tiny here. I just call it out to demonstrate, like, if there are issues that or quality of life things we wish we had in the TCG tooling to make it easier to work, like, they are happy to accept patches. So yeah, here we can expand just instead of a hard code of 3, we can extend that to the bibliography reference. And actually, over the course of doing this, I found that some of the references had become out of date or out of sync. So this fixed that. So that was a nice little win there. But yeah, that's yeah. Pretty much the main effort here was just reformatting all the code blocks. So not every spec will have that kind of issue. Yeah, that's it. The other references are gone because now they're automatically generated. One thing which is a little bit hard to do the way you want usually in this tooling setup is tables. So like, here's some tables. Now there are like 3 different table formats that the tooling recognizes, but only one of them gives you fine-grained control of the column widths. It is not generally a smart layout. It doesn't try and dynamically size things and wrap the text automatically to make everything fit. So this format lets you specify, okay, this is the relative widths of all the cells, and then it's just expanded or contracted to fit into the width of the page. So this isn't a good example, but like this one, yeah, if I wanted this one to be a bit wider, I could just put that there. And you're definitely going to want an extension to auto format tables. So I have one installed. Just does that now. So now this cell would be wider now, and at the expense of these ones. These would now be commensurately smaller, if that's what you want. In this case, I don't want that, so I'm going to take this, put it on the line below, and then reformat. So, but yeah, if your current spec is in a Word doc, certainly that will be a manual process to. Well, actually, no. I take that back. There'll be some automated tooling which can probably take in a Google Doc and spit out Markdown, but then you will need to go through and manually fix up all the tables and the references and code blocks. But I think it is quite worth it.
Pandoc does have a mode where it can do that natively. It's not fantastic, but it's 80% the way there.
That does not surprise me. Thanks for letting me know.
You can bulk convert lots of different formats to lots of other formats, but like you said, Jeff, you do have that last step of having to do it by hand, fixing up the various different formatting issues that will emerge.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So we are about to start migrating another spec in. I think it's going to be the IROP profile for DPE. We're thinking that's going to go into the security repo, which, as we can see, is a bustling ghost town. But we hope to bring more life into this repo.
So we should also migrate the OCP profile here, like once we put public, Jeff.
Yeah. So
do you expect to have the single repo and put everything here, or having like different sub repo, like for security? We can. I think it makes sense to have everything in the same repo, and we have all those different profiles here.
I think that makes sense. I don't have a strong opinion about it. I know that, like, in some organizations, it's a single spec per repo, and that works. In others, it's more conglomerated, like with hardware management profiles. So the way I figure, like, we could start with just putting it all in here, and if we find that that's onerous, we can split it out.
Oh, no, it's good to put everything here, because you can also put some recommendation, like, for example, like we can put the OCP profile for attestate for RATSIT, and then there is the DP profile for Calyptra, for IROT, and then perhaps you can have a glue to make these two documents work together. If you happen to have a IROT profile and you want to convey your evidence over SPDM using RATSIT, that's how you do it, put all together, and you have everything in the same place. And I think it makes sense.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, one thing I forgot to talk about, speed lock. So one neat thing we can do with this is we can have a GitHub deploy pages YAML, which basically we set up GitHub pages for the Calyptra repo. And this tooling will run through, and every time you push to main, we'll render it into a couple formats and also go back and look at some tags. So what this turns into is we tag the 0.85 version. Now, I mentioned that the tooling spits out both PDF and HTML. I don't know, I kind of like HTML because you can deep leak it. Like here we have background, so easy to pass this URL around if you want to go directly to this part of it. I've characterized HTML render as experimental just because you get some weird artifacts. Sometimes the diagrams show up weird, or there's text alignment issues. I'm trying to find an example of that. Where was it? I don't know. Yeah, I guess there's this space between R and 0 should not be there, and it is not there in the PDF, but it is here in the HTML. I don't know why. Sometimes some other text has weird random spacing. I can't find an example of that right now. That's all right. And the tables, I didn't do a lot of work to make these tables look nice, so they kind of look, yeah, but they're serviceable, and it's easy to fix this up if we need to. And then if you want to know what the spec looks like at head, you can just go to there. So this is the same format, just now it's, here's the git commit we're at, and the content will look a little bit different because there made some changes since the right. Oh yes, here's an example. See that shared S Herod secret? I don't know why that's doing that. If you do prefer the PDF look, then you can just go to there. Here's what it looks. Here's what the PDF looks like at head. And as we can see, yeah, no weird spacing here. Looks normal. So we could do that kind of thing for all the OCP other specifications, because that's the nice thing. Like, I'm going to go to a different Markdown spec, which has not been converted. It's just regular Markdown. Here's the Calyptra spec. This is straight up Markdown, and GitHub is able to render this inline, so you can just, it looks nice, and you can deep link into it. You don't get that with OCP lock anymore, because now the spec looks like this, and the GitHub has no idea what to do with it. And that's why I liked having this out here, so you can actually see what the spec looks like at head.
Perhaps a stupid question. Is that just a file extension problem?
Well, let's see. You know, there is that, but also you won't get full fidelity. I think it might be able to deal with these ones, recognize it as an image. The UML stuff, it will not. Like all these things would just show up as code block. It's not going to know how to render that. And these LaTeX macros, it's not going to know how to render those. The bibliography, it won't know how to expand that, I think. So it might be able to look nicer if you just change the extension to .md, but it will not look the way it's supposed to. It won't give you a full live view.
Thank you.
But no, that's a good question. So. Anecdotally, I can say that, like, yeah, having tooling like this to have specs in Markdown, I think it does tend to increase throughput and participation. So looking forward to getting more mileage out of this stuff. That's all I had for today.
Hey, could you please paste the link for OCP lock in the chat?
Yes, I will do that.
Okay.
There we go. And just for good. Yes?
Can you make some comments about how we should track what changes over time in this kind of a format? You know, I mean, it used to be that there would be a little block in the front that would say kind of highlighted of updates, but I know in the GitHub model, there's other mechanisms that record that, but that tends to be very, very detailed. Is there a way for non-programming consumers to sort of process kind of what's rolling forward as the document matures?
Yeah, let me this up. They anticipated that kind of thing in this template. So where's my all-in-one? That's what I want, I think. Yeah, here is here's a table that lists out the version numbers and the authors and what changed between each one. We have not yet put, like, just for the OCP lock stuff, or for that spec specifically, we haven't yet added this because we're not yet at 1.0, and so things are changing all the time, and we don't think it's useful to be able to be tracking here what's changing between different versions. Once a spec hits 1.0 and starts accepting material changes, I think it would be the onus would be on the maintainers to maintain a list like this, and it would have to be a manual effort because, yes, as you noted, like the commit list is going to be very granular and detailed.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions or thoughts brewing?
Can you comment about the distinction for lock with regard to Calyptra versus Calyptra core versus Calyptra subsystem?
Sure.
There's quite a range of description of that in the documents that I've looked at, and I know that in the latest public talk at the April summit, there was a comment made about trying to kind of firm up the distinctions between Calyptra core and Calyptra subsystem, but yet people tend to use the general word Calyptra, and I don't know whether that's a third category or an over umbrella over core or subsystem, and it doesn't matter. And so the scope of lock is a little bit vague to me still.
Yes. Okay. That's good feedback for this spec. I'm taking a note right now.
Yeah, I know it does say subsystem 2.1 plus kind of in the one document there, but in the trying to fit that in the larger mosaic of the other things, it got a little lost, I think.
Sure. No, I think it's worth yeah. We mention it here. I think it's worth putting maybe a few more words to it. So totally fair request. So I'll just say what it is, my understanding of all this, and then of course we'll write it down. Calyptra comes in two variants. You've got your passive / companion mode, which is just by itself, and then active, and that's subsystem. In both cases, you have Calyptra core, which is the thing which has the DICE engine and the ROM and RTL and firmware that we provide, and then subsystem brings in the MCU, which is a separate core where the vendor can write their own code. So OCP lock brings in new functionality for core. So there'll be new mailbox commands, new key derivation flows. And then we also have a stipulation that it works, that it takes a dependency on subsystem because we need to push keys out to an encryption engine over the AXI-bus, AXI-bus. And that capability is only present in subsystem.
So is it fair to say that lock is unavailable in core only implementations?
Correct.
Without the MCU piece? Okay.
Right. Like we can implement all the mailbox commands, but then when you go and load an MEK, it won't work. So yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Any other questions, comments?
This is great. Thanks a lot, Jeff. I hope we move over to this OCP. be nice
Hi,
to see
Jeff.
all documents this way.
Mm.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, Jeff. So I had one question regarding so the uh, spec on the lock one, the log spec. So that we could also use for CXL. What do you think? Because the CXL spec also talks about a secure erase command and repurposing, and there's a sanitize command. So do you think not only for SSDs, but we could expand it, or at least guide the CXL consortium to even consider using this?
Perhaps. I am not as aware of CXL's sanitize regime, or I wasn't aware that CXL had much of an overlap with persistent data storage.
Yeah, so I guess Samsung has, at least has done some use cases showing CXL also used along with their persistent storage, and they have showcased that in Supercompute and other conferences.
Okay. I mean, I'll just off the cuff remarks here. OCP lock, it's an umbrella effort. There's the stuff we're actually building as part of Calyptra Core to derive MEKs and program them and whatnot, bind them to certain keys. But a lot of what we're doing doesn't have much value without host-side APIs that would actually let you drive things like provision a key to the drive with asymmetric encryption, or sanitize a fuse key or whatnot. And we're pursuing all that as part of the Opal feature set. But there's nothing about lock which is inherently specific to Opal. So if there are other host-facing APIs, like KeePro.io or Enterprise TCG, or maybe CXL, we could certainly pursue creating bindings for that. So something that has lock on the other side of it could be actuated. Yeah. But I don't know enough about CXL to kind of dive into that. So if someone wants to do a little bit of research and propose something, I'd be all ears.
Okay, sure.
So Jeff, at the risk of oversimplifying, it's like thinking of CXL as kind of like, NVMe relative to like some of the TCG stuff, the Trusted Computing Group feature sets and whatnot. So I guess a quick check would be, is the CXL community leveraging any of the TCG interfaces in their current specs, or is there anything that would prevent that from being used? And if the answer is no, they could be used, then the work that's the host to drive interface that's being spec'd out on the TCG side, then it might be applicable. The Calyptra piece would be kind of sort of the other element of it is, where would that reside? Since it's not necessarily an SSD, it's something else. That might be a little more complicated.
Okay. All right. Well, potentially fodder for future discussion.
Indeed. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, oh, yes.
I was going to ask one more thing about your, when you gave the demonstration between the PDF and the Markdown or OCP version, is that something that is generated by the developer community and left in the GitHub tree, or is that something that is auto-generated by by us, the viewers, based on a tool that we have kind of on our system, so that it's always live, or is it subject to updates of when you guys decide to turn the crank to put the PDF incarnation out on the tree?
It would be more the latter, I think.
Okay. Yep.
So, okay.
Yeah. So when you went to the PDF subtree, you were migrating around your document tree to go to a PDF instantiation that someone put up. It may or may not reflect the current state of what the .md file is, or the .ocp file in the case of lock.
Well, yeah, there's a few. Okay, there's a bit of nuance here. So I'm gonna close the ones I don't need. I don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Don't need that. Okay. So with OCP lock, we have committed into the tree certain specification, like when we want to cut a version, we build it at that version and then commit it to the tree. There are better ways to do this, but this is just what we kind of are at right now. We also have, as I mentioned, this GitHub Actions, which every time this file is changed in the main branch, it will get regenerated automatically by GitHub here. So this URL is always up to date, but it's not viewer triggered. Like my visiting this didn't make this render. It was rendered last time this file was changed.
Okay.
Because rendering does take about a minute or so from scratch. So it's faster when you have everything cached, but yeah. And for convenience, we also define some tags. So like v085, this tag points to the git commit, some time ago, and it just rolls back and renders it at this version as well. So we have a stable URL to point people at if we need to. It just so happens that this content is also regenerated every time the spec is changed. It needn't. We could have just rendered it once and froze it, but that's just how we decided to roll for right now. We could be more efficient. I guess one reason we did it this way was that the tooling to create the HTML, the HTML template is not very mature. I recently added this version field and also the JavaScript to make these different anchor links show up. So if we had frozen this, then I would have had to regenerate it manually, but now it just kind of inherits the latest HTML templates. Anyways. And this, this is very early days, Wild West stuff. I'm sure we'll arrive at something maybe more sensible when we get more specs coming in the pipeline. Funny enough, I wanted, let's talk about this one. So I wanted the URL for this to be stable, like just head, PDF, whatever. But I also wanted, when you download this, to have part of the file name be like the actual git commit. So this is actually an iframe where the PDF viewer shows up as just the only element in the page, but the content at index.html is just an iframe. Fun little hack. All right. Any other questions or comments?
I'd like to say thank you. I intend to leverage this not only for this project, but also for some internal documentation.
Fantastic. And yeah, yeah, feel free to, fork this, customize your PDF, HTML templates. It's all fair game. I know we'll try and keep the like this is just a thin wrapper around the TCG tooling, and I know we'll try and keep the interface there stable, backwards compatible. There has been talk, very informal talk, of like having the TCG pandoc tooling kind of be in a. Oh, I guess we're not sure where it wants to live long term. If it's going to start being used by all sorts of different standards body or standards development organizations, then maybe it finds a home somewhere, or maybe it just keeps living where it is, and TCG would be happy to host it. But yeah, it's good to know that it's going to be useful. All right. Well, I think we can get 10 minutes back.
Thank you, Jeff.
Thank you all.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good one.
Hi, Jeff.
Hello.
Yeah, Jeff. So I want to speak. So you'll be you'll be outlining the that the abstracts for the OCP Global Summit.
That is on our plate. Yes.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I've also submitted few. So yeah, would love to know on the selection, and then could work on the slides.
Okay.
Hey Jeff,
Yeah.
when I type in your head URL, it does not come up for me. It says there is not a GitHub page site listed there.
Really?
Yeah.
Let me just.
That one.
Yeah.
Sorry, the specification /head.
Yeah. So I just copy and pasted it into the chat. If you click that, does it not work?
We are not able to click on these links anymore, to my knowledge. They're just an image. But
no, I can do that. Yeah, I was able to open. So you have to open the chat and then just click on. I'm able to do it.
All right, let me try one more time, but mine does not. Let me see. I tried opening a chat in a separate box this time. Oh, okay, maybe. Let me see. Okay. Wow. Yeah, no, that time that worked.
Okay. Weird.
I must have a typo, and I don't know what the issue is, but it looks. One capital C. It's case sensitive. That's my gotcha.
There it is.
Yeah, capital C encryptor. Thank you. That's a big help for me.
Yeah, you bet.
I'm going to bookmark that right now.
I appreciate it, Jeff. Yeah, thank
you. Yeah, appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you all. Ciao.